Hey everyone, welcome in. I'm Captivate, and as some of you may already know, Bon.Kurei are definitely not cheap right now. If you're trying to play Blue Purple Luffy at locals or not in larger events, it's not very sustainable to go out and buy him now because he came out a little bit over a year ago now, and he's sitting at around the $55 price point. So it's really not worth buying if you don't already have a playset of him. So you're running around like $200 just for this one card that definitely has alternatives. So I'm definitely not trying to say that any of these alternatives are better, but they are for sure comparable and at least make the deck playable if you are on a little bit of a budget, because him and the Sanjis are really the only two cards that have a price tag, and the Sanjis are a little bit less than half the cost of Bon.Kurei right now. So this will hopefully make the deck a little bit more attainable for those of you that don't already have Bon.Kurei and don't want to go out and drop a bunch of money on the Bon.Kurei. So some of the first options that I found when I was looking around, and I think these are the ones that people probably already know about, is going to be the Hawkins from OPO1, which will give you a Rested Dawn, the It's to Die For from OPO8, which will give you up to 2 Rested Dawn, but the only downside of that card is it is going to be a brick. And then there's also the Lead Performer Disaster from the starter deck 4, but the downside of both of those events is that they are going to add another brick to your deck, which you really don't want to be doing because this deck already runs so many bricks. I do know that you get to filter with the Lin and the Giants and the Namis, and there's several ways to filter with the deck, but the downside really outweighs the upside of ramping, in my opinion, with those cards. So I found that the best card is actually the Brûlée from OPO8. On KO, she gives you a Rested Dawn from your deck. Now, some people might be thinking, if I play this and they just don't swing at me, then I don't get to ramp. And yes, that's true, but you are playing a deck that the longer the game goes on, the better it is for you. So the things that I've found is if they don't swing at me, it actually feels better for me in the long run. Because yes, I don't get to ramp, and maybe I don't get my leader effect off a turn earlier, or I don't get to play a body a turn earlier than I would be able to, but them stopping swinging at me saves me the cards in hand, saves me life and all of that stuff. So it basically mitigates the fact of me not ramping by them not interacting with me for a turn. And most of the games I played, I found people did actually swing at me, and then I was able to just block, and then I get to block, save myself a life. I used the one card to block with, and then I ramp the Rested Dawn. Yes, it's not active, and Bon.Kurei is for sure a scarier card on board. As an alternative, this card is pennies right now. You can pick this up anywhere, any bulk box. I think you'd be able to find this Brûlée if you don't already have your own. I imagine if you opened any OPO8, you already have these sitting around. So yeah, this is the list that I have been playing around with and decided on. One of the things that I found when I was playing a traditional Blue Purple Luffy list is the deck is obviously very susceptible to getting run down by aggro decks. There's a lot of decks right now that are just trying to kill you, because that's typically the game plan against Luffy, is you either die before 10 Dawn or you win, because drawing 2 cards a turn is going to be a little bit too strong for just about any other deck in the game to keep up with. So I'm going to go through the deck list real fast. Starting off, I am running one Pudding. I go back and forth on this card. I think if you are playing at locals or if you're playing on the sim, it's worth running one of them, mainly as a punish for anyone that's not playing around it. But if you are playing in like bigger events or anything like that, that's going to be closed deck lists, I think you could play without Pudding, primarily because of the fact that most people will be playing around it regardless. But also, if you're taking this to a big event, I think you're going to be playing with Bon.Kurei. So I like having the inclusion of the Pudding just to catch people off guard if you are playing this at smaller events. Nami is one of the better cards in the deck. On your 5 Dawn turn or your 6 Dawn turn, you can play down the Nami and then either cycle out bricks or put cards back on top of your deck to use with your leader effect. The Luffy is another card that you can ramp to if you're going first. So the idea of the deck is you want to go first, and then once you go first, you're going to try and ramp a single time, so that rather than going to 7, you go to 8 Dawn. And on your 8 Dawn turn, you're going to look to play either the Katakuri or the Luffy. Primarily, you want to get the Katakuri on board. The Luffy is just going to give you another card to play on 8 Dawn, and then he is very, very strong into Blackbeard because he's going to allow you to bounce their Burgesses back to hand. The Mihawk is the best card that I've found against Green Purple Luffy. He is super strong in that matchup, and Green Purple Luffy had one of the best conversion rates at the regionals this past past weekend. So you're definitely going to be playing against Green Purple Luffy's this set, and he is going to be able to bottom deck a staged Sanji and Pudding, whereas Linlin is only able to get a 6 cost. The Mihawk can bottom deck a 7 cost, so you're able to bottom deck the Sanji and Pudding if they have the stage on it. So it'll play around that very nicely. Sanji, I don't need to explain that. He's basically what the deck is built around. Once you get to the 9 or 10 on turn, you use your leader effect, set it up in a way that you can play the card off the top with the Sanji. Zorojuro, I was originally playing 4 of this, and the more that I ended up playing the deck, the more that I found he is all right. I think there's an argument to be made where you could run more of him or less of him. I know that one of the topping lists that got top 8 over this past weekend was actually running 0 Zorojuro, so that was kind of what I got my inspiration from, and I just decided to throw a couple back in the list. I think if he comes up, he's good, but more often than not, if you are going first, you're really only looking to ramp once with a Gear 2 or a Bagua or a Zorojuro or a Brûlé or a Godthread. We have a lot of ramp cards in the deck right now. He's just one of the weaker ones, and a lot of the times I found that he gets dealt with depending on the deck you're playing with. Utsuhachi is just the best purple 2k counter, so he's obviously in the deck and he is searchable with your leader effects. This is the card that this video is kind of built around, the Charlotte Brûlé. Traditionally, this would be Bon.Kurei, and if you have Bon.Kurei, I would say 100% play Bon.Kurei right here instead of the Brûlé. One of the things that I do really like about the Brûlé is that she is a blocker that's going to help you get to the late game, which really is what this deck struggles with. So if you're playing against something like a Bello Betty, yes, they can play the, I think it's the Kuma that could KO a smaller power character, but if they are not playing that card, then she's going to be able to eat one of those 7 or 8k swings that they give you. And this is true for decks like Zoro, Law, and any of the other decks that's going to be a little bit more aggressive. You'll just be able to block with her, and then while blocking, you get to get the additional Rested Dawn. The one thing to think about with her is if you are playing against a blue deck that can bottom deck her, she will not get the effect off. So against any blue decks, you do want to try to use one of the other ramp cards. Sanji is another very good purple 2k. He is primarily just a Straw Hat that is a 2k. Sometimes you can play him as a blocker. His effect really doesn't ever come up in this deck, but he is a blocker that you can play for 6. Katakuri is one of the strongest purple cards in the game right now for sure. Him giving you the Rested Dawn is very, very strong. With the Linlin, that's going to -1 so that you can play a Linlin and then still Giant on your opponent's turn. And obviously an 8k blocker that can restand himself is crazy. Gravity Blade is a card that I put in for the aggressive matchups. I've gone back and forth on this card, and I think it is necessary with the amount of aggressive decks that are going around right now. If you're playing against a Law, what you can do is bottom deck a 5 cost and then bottom deck the 2 cost blocker Beige, and then what they'll do is they'll top life one of their 5 costs and then bottom deck the Beige, so you get both off of the board for that turn, just to prolong the game a little bit longer. And obviously if they don't have that 2 cost Beige, this card kind of blows that deck out with being able to bottom deck 2 of their cards. Giant, I don't need to explain this card at all. This is the best card in the game, or at least one of the best cards in the game right now, so obviously this is going to be in the deck. Gear 2 is going to help you ramp. Thunder Bagua is another card that has it's gained a lot of popularity because of some of the topping Blue Purple Luffy lists. I know a couple different people have suggested using this card, and I really like it. I think it comes up a good amount. Being able to counter while also ramping is very good. You can just, on your 7 Dawn turn, for example, you could play like a Nami, leave 2 Dawn open for this, and then play the Thunder Bagua, ramping 1 rested. So when it gets back to your turn, you'll be at 8 Dawn, so you can use your leader effect on that turn. And then hiding at the bottom here, we do have the God Thread. I go back and forth on the God Thread. I think if you want to decrease the amount of bricks in your deck, you could drop 1 or 2 of these for 1 or 2 Zorojuros, maybe go like 3-3. I think the God Thread is really, really strong into a lot of decks right now. Green Purple Luffy, if they play a Zoro, Betty with any of the 4 cost characters they play, anything in general, being able to KO a 4 or 5 cost character is going to be really, really strong. And then you also do get to get that ramp. So if you're going first and you don't see the Zorojuro or the Gear 2, you can God Thread, KO one of their bodies, and then you'll go to your 6 Dawn turn from your 5 Dawn turn, so this will ramp you to 6 Dawn on your 5 Dawn turn, and then you'll be able to have your 8 Dawn turn on the next turn. Yeah, so this is the Blue Purple list right now that I would play if I didn't have any Bon.Kureis. This is definitely what I would run. I have had a good amount of success with this one, and I'm going to jump into some games now. Let me know in the comments what you would play instead if you don't have Bon.Kureis, or if you think you can't play with Blue Purple Luffy without Bon.Kureis. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe. subscribe. It means so much to me, and it is free for you. So have fun and enjoy the games. And I'm gonna go first in the mirror. We have Zorojoro, and then we have the Bagua. We can ramp with both. We really are only looking to ramp once, so we can get to 8 Dawn a turn earlier, or if we can ramp twice, then we could get to 9 a turn earlier. So I think I'm fine to keep this, because we can play the Zorojoro on 3, and then we can ramp with that, and then we could play the Nami on 5 to look for a Katakuri to play on the next turn. And we'll just swing 6 here. We do get the Katakuri, so we can definitely play that on our 8 Dawn turn. He's pretty important in the mirror to restand all your bodies to make them swing at your life. We'll just play out the Zorojuro. And he does swing 7. I'm just going to give a 2k here. We can stay a little bit healthier. So I will just swing, ramp 1, so we'll go to 8 next turn, and then I can play the Nami. Before I do that, I'm going to swing 7, because we don't need to leave a Dawn open. So we can just make sure he gives us a 2k or takes this life. And then we can play the Nami here, so that is a lot of Linlins. So on our next turn, we'll be at 8, and then the turn after, we'll be able to leader effect. So I'm going to put 2 Linlins on top, so we'll be able to leave 1 there to try and find a Sanji to go Sanji into Linlin. And then we will pass. So on our next turn, we'll draw Linlin, play Katakuri. Definitely let that die. No reason to save that. And then I'm guessing he'll swing this at us. Just get the ramp. That's cool. Okay, so he does get his double ramp, so he'll be on 8 Dawn next turn. And then we get the pudding. Alright, interesting. Yeah, so we do not have the Katakuri anymore, which is a little bit bad for us, but that's fine. I will play the Nami this turn, and I'm going to swing with both of these. So I'm just going to get the Zorojuro off the board, just so he can't ramp without a Katakuri on board. And then I'm going to play the Nami for sure. And I think I'll just stick 2 on here just to make sure he takes this life. Goes down to 1. And then play this. Okay, so we do get the Linlin, and then we'll be able to leader effect next turn. So I'm going to put the Bagua and the Linlin in life so that we can heal with the Linlin into the Bagua if we want to. And then we'll get to Sanji into Linlin on our next turn, which is good for us. The pudding definitely threw us off a little bit, because I would have definitely liked to have the Katakuri out there. Definitely give the 1k there. And then he gets his own Katakuri. So we will be ahead, because we get to do the Sanji play into the Linlin. So we'll take the Giant, and then we're going to draw the Gear 2. We'll Sanji Linlin, and then Linlin will heal us into the Thunder Bagua. Before we do that, I'm just going to swing a couple 6s. And I'm doing this just to threaten the Katakuri, because he doesn't know that we're not playing Luffy, so, you know, he could be scared of the Luffy coming into the Katakuri. But he does take the free block. I think that's fine. And then we're just going to swing these 6s at him, because he really can't... like, he could swing a 6 here with his leader, and then we give a 1k, and then if he goes 8 here, then we just... we honestly could counter out. We'll see what we end up doing, but yeah. We will heal, discarding the Gravity Blade, and I don't want to put either of these in life. I don't need to heal him. The pudding isn't threatening on the board, and then we will pass. So yeah, the Gear 2 does not protect characters, so we couldn't Gear 2 out of the Katakuri swing. But I will defend if he just goes 6 at 1, I'll just give it 2k so I can keep 1. And then if he goes here, then I will let that die. Yep. And then now he's going to be a little bit behind. Well, not a little bit. He's definitely behind because we still have 4 life. He has a lot of cards in hand. But if he does something like a Linlin, then he... Okay, so he plays another Katakuri. No way to heal. So we should be able to pressure him pretty good this turn, depending on what we find here. If we find a Nami, I think we could play the Nami and then just go like 8, 10, 10, and then leave some Dawn up for events. I think that is a pretty good play to make. Because getting the Sanji effect off put us ahead in board presence, so he had to take the 2 turns to play both, obviously. Yeah, and then he does actually concede there. I think he's a little bit too far behind, and then he actually has no counter events, so he was 1 card off the Giant, so then, yeah, so we would have found the Linlin, Sanji, Nami, yeah, so we could have played the Nami and then just gone like 8, 10, 10, played Nami, keep up all of these, or I think it's probably better to just go Sanji, Linlin, and then we could go like 6, 6, 9, 9, and then that way we have a completely full board that we can go for game on the next turn. But yeah, I think we just got a little bit luckier in this one than he did. I feel like that happens pretty regularly in the mirror. It's just whoever gets the Sanji off typically wins. We do have the Brûlé and the Bagua. The Raging Tiger is only good if they don't put a Dawn on their leader. I'm just going to mulligan this hand and see what we can find. Yeah, so we do have the Gear 2 that we could use if we need to ramp. And then we can play the Brûlé on 5 to block. And then we're really just trying to ramp once to get to that 8 Dawn to try and get a Katakuri off from there. I could use the Gear 2 and then ramp 1 rested now. I think I'm just going to swing 9 and then have him take that. I do think there is an argument to make to starving this deck because he'll eventually go to a 7k leader and everything he puts out will be 7k as well. Oh, and he is playing the version that got top 8, so he is playing that pudding. So I'm gonna play the Brûlé here, and then we can. Yeah, I kind of, because we could. Let's see what we can do. Let's just go 7 and then play Brûlé. Yep, and he does counter out of that. Because he countered out of that, I think we starve him from here. I don't know why he countered out of that swing, if I'm being honest. I don't think he should have. Because now you can see how little cards he has in hand. So as soon as anything turns sideways, we can put a lot of pressure on him. So he's going to go 6. I'm just going to give the 1k here, and then I'll block. And then we'll get the ramp off of the Brûlé, which really isn't going to matter much because we don't have an 8 Dawn play. But because he didn't put Dawn on his leader, then we can just bottom deck this. So we'll just Gravity Blade both of these, and I honestly think that will win us the game. So we'll just go, we're going to play Gravity Blade, and then I'm going to go 7 into the Luffy, and we'll be able to clear his board. Whenever you're playing this deck, you always want to prioritize putting Dawn on your leader on any turn that this deck can play Gravity Blade, because most lists are playing Gravity Blade, and this kind of just blows it out. Yeah, so then we'll be able to leader effect on our next turn, and he really doesn't have any board presence. He can play like the Rush Luffy, or I'm sure he has another Beer Luffy. Yeah. And then we'll just take whatever this swing is. Unless it's 1 card. If he swings 7, I'll probably give it 2k, but I don't see what else he's going to end up doing with this Dawn. Okay, so Frankie probably using... I would have thought he would use Frankie effect, but... Okay. Guess he doesn't want to cycle. Oh, this stack is terrible. Yeah, I'm gonna grab the Gear 2 just to get another event in hand. I could have grabbed the Sanji, and then I'm absolutely gonna bottom deck that. So we can't swing at him, but what we can do is play the Linlin, and then the Linlin will get rid of the Frankie just to get him off the board, and then that way he won't be able to eat any of the big swings that we'll do into these 7k bodies here. And I don't want to give him another card because he's already at 3 in hand, so I'm going to tax this Luffy whenever he turns it sideways, so I definitely don't want to put a Dawn on my leader. As much as I don't think I need this Dawn for an event, I don't want to put it on my leader and swing at him. If the Luffy was sideways, I would definitely put the Dawn on and then swing at the Luffy. But yeah, I think just countering out of the 7k swing and then also not putting Don on leader, because if he had put a Don on leader, he'd have putting Luffy. This could have been another 6k body, and then he would have like 3 more cards in hand right now. Yeah, so I will give a, so it's gonna be 7, 8, 10, I assume. So I'm gonna give the 2k for this, and then I'll give the, yeah, I'll give the event here, just because I don't really want to go to 1, because we don't have, okay, so he doesn't play the Kaido. So we're definitely going to take the Giant, and then we're going to draw the Dofi, and then we'll Sanji into Katakuri. And then we'll get to leave one up for Giant. I don't really want to draw either of these cards, but I do want to Sanji into Katakuri here. Before we do anything, I'm just going to swing 9 at the Luffy. Imagine, okay, yeah, so he does do that. And then I am going to go Sanji into Katakuri, so I'll have this 1 Don here. So now what I need to do is figure out if I can, yeah, because we're going to have Katakuri, so I'll be able to restand the Linlin, so I absolutely can swing this here. I'm not scared of dying at all. I have 3 life and then quite a good amount of counter in hand. So I don't need to use these, and then honestly, me not gianting this turn is better for me so that I don't draw into those 2 bricks. And then we'll just restand the Linlin, and then we don't need to gain the Don, but you know. So now if he swings anything here, it's gonna die. Like whatever he swings will die because he has no cards in hand. Even knowing that he has a 2k here. Okay, yeah, so he swings the Law. So I'm just gonna give the 1k, and if that's all he wants to swing, that's fine. I'm sure he wants to get the buff for his leader, and then we will take, again, I'm not scared of dying at all, especially now that I know this is a Robin. I literally can't die this turn, and then we'll just have him swing everything. So if I block and then give a 1k, he'll probably go 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 here. Or if I take, then he could go 12 here. I kind of want to stay at 1 life because I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any like healing cards in the top. So I'm just going to 2-1 here. And then that will guarantee that we can stay at least 1 life with this swing and just take this. And then we do get the Linlin, but the Linlin really doesn't mean anything here. I honestly think our best play is just to go Nami. So we could take Nami, and then from Nami, we can use the effect. I'm not sure if... So we could grab Nami, and then if we bottom these and just look for counter, we'd be fine. We could also go Sanji into Nami just to fill our board out, but I kind of... So what we could do is we could go 10, they 2k, 10, dead, 8, dead, clear their board. Yeah, so I think we just play Nami this turn, just so we get the additional Don. Because we do have to swing 10 at least twice, and we would only have 1 Don for playing the Sanji. So I'm going to grab Nami, and then I'm just going to bottom deck these because we have the Linlin if we need to heal. So I don't really need any of these, and then I kind of just want to draw into more counter with the Nami. So we'll just start with a 10, and then probably 2k this, which then we'll just go 10 again. Yeah, I think this whole game just spiraled out of control because they gave this 2-1. I think this is another reason why starving this deck is good. I think you can definitely just not hit them for the first couple turns because their leader's 7k, but all their bodies are also 7k. This isn't in a lot of decks. It's usually the 6-cost Rush Luffy. So it's like 7k, 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 and what's the point of swinging at the leader when you can just clear their board? Yeah, so we'll go 10, and then we'll clear this, and then we might as well just get this off the board just so it doesn't keep swinging at us. There's really not any reason not to, because we have full control of this game now, so there really isn't any way he can get back into this. Even if he top decks like Gear 5, like 10-cost Luffy, or the Rush Luffy, we're totally fine. It's just not that hard of a decision. I don't know if he left. Okay, finally. And then we'll just go Katakuri here, clear this. And do I want to go here? Yeah, I might as well go here. Just get that off the board. Just swing into it. It doesn't really matter. There's nothing to decide about here. Alright, and then Nami, and then I'm just gonna bottom deck both of these. I don't have any reason to play those. And then we'll just pass and restand Kata. Dang, I don't know what this guy is taking so long for. All right, and then he ends up conceding there. So yeah, there really wasn't anything he was going to be able to do. He can't get through it all, and then on our next turn we can just start pushing face and then kill him in 2 turns. Just set up like a 2-turn lethal after that. So yeah, I think he definitely misplayed a little bit in the beginning, countering out of the 7, and then specifically not putting the Dawn on his leader when we were able to bottom deck both the Pudding and the Luffy. He just really didn't apply any pressure to us. And then we had the Brulee blocker to block one of the swings, which really wasn't very meaningful, but it saved us a card. So yeah. All right, so we have a game against Teach. We are going second, and we have the Gravity Blade. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep this because of that. We have the Brulee in hand as well that we can play on 4. And then if they decided to swing into us, then we can go ahead and take the block and then ramp with that. The list is running a lot more blockers and counter events, so I'm kind of just trying to stay alive rather than like fully ramp to like the 8 or 9 Dawn turn like you'll typically see in blue purple decks. I think they're very susceptible to getting run down by aggro decks, so I'm trying to mitigate that a little bit with this build. We have nothing to do on 2 Dawn, so we will pass. And then 4 we can play Brulee. He does swing 6 at us. This would be a good time if we did have, or no, Bago, you actually need 2 life, so Bago wouldn't do anything. I am going to go ahead and give him a 1k here. I don't think the Nami is ever going to get the on play, so we'll go ahead and counter out of that because we want to play the Brulee next turn. So we will swing 6, and then he does turn off our on plays for the Bon.Kurei, but that does not matter because we're not playing it. So yeah, whether he swings into us or if he KOs this, we'll get the Dawn. So I'm guessing he's going to turn this into an Augur that he'll later effect, and then have the Augur.Q. I will take out the Augur if he does do that because I don't want those sticking that he can play them with the Teach. Because 2 Augur and Teach is enough to KO any of our 9k bodies that we play, so that's kind of what they're looking to do in this matchup. So on 6, we don't really have any plays. We can go ahead and play down a Sanji just to get another body on board, and I'm good with that. I would love to have any other kind of ramp card right now, but we do not see any. So we'll just play that down, get another body on board we can swing with. Kind of assuming he's going to want to play the Teach here, just to get that on board. And leaving the Kuzan on board obviously does get to play around Gravity Blade. But he will eventually have to pop the Kuzan for Van Augers, and then once he does that, we can try to go Gravity Blade both of those. Really thinking through this turn. Okay, so he is going to swing 6 at us. Blocking doesn't really do anything because we weren't able to ramp again. Because if I was able to ramp last turn, then blocking would give us the additional Dawn. We could drop the Sanji. I think I'm going to go ahead and just take this one. And we do hit the trigger. I'm going to hold this for a Teach. Bottom decking the Dakyu really isn't going to do anything there. I could have taken the block to see if he might turn this into a Van Auger and then use both to pop the Brûlée. But if he does end up doing that, I'm fine with it. Because one of the things I don't want is I don't want him to get 2 Van Augers on board. I'm guessing he's going to pop this for Van Auger and then play another Kuzan to play around the Gravity Blade. I'm going to go ahead and just block this one and then get the Dawn. Okay, so he does get the Lafitte. Yeah, so we can look to play the Katakuri next turn, I think. That's probably going to be one of our best moves. Yeah, I don't really want to use the Gravity Blade this turn, because I'm going to try and see if he ends up playing something else out next turn. I am going to play the Katakuri this turn, though. I'll just start with a 6 at the Lafitte, and then we can go 7 into life, and then we can play down that Katakuri blocker. I don't need to leave one up for Giant, even if I did have a Giant, because I'm not scared of anything, really, and I also... so yeah, we can't untap anything, gain arrested. But yeah, we just don't really need to use the Giant this turn, because he's probably only really going to swing at us with the Burgess if he swings at us with anything. And then unless he plays a Teach this turn, I'm going to try to get the Gravity Blade off next turn, and then that should kind of win the game for us. If he goes like double Burgess and then we just Gravity Blade both. Because of him turning off our on-plays, we can't heal with the Linlin like we usually can. So you do have to counter out a little bit more aggressively than you would need to if you... because you can typically rely on that Linlin heal. He's really thinking through these turns. Okay, so I'm guessing he's gonna try and remove the Sanji with a Teach. We'll just take the free block here. No reason to not do that. Okay, and then Dakyu. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so I'm not gonna swing at the Dakyu. I don't think I need to remove this because he's not gonna have enough cost reduction for anything really. I'm gonna grab the 2k here, and then I'm going to just bottom these, I'm kind of looking for giants, blockers, 2Ks, anything like that, and I already have the 9-cost body and Sanji that I can play out. But we are going to be looking to play the Gravity Blade this turn, and then we could play the Doflamingo. Even though he doesn't have any on plays, it still gives us a blocker. And I don't want to swing at the Q because I don't want to give him the card back in hand, because the cost reduction really isn't going to mean anything with the Q, because he could play like double Van Augur, which gets him to 6, and then the Q could KO a 7 cost. Or if he has like double Tempest Kick Van Augur, then cool. I thought cool on him. And then we'll just bottom deck both of these and then play down the Doflamingo. And then if he plays out the Teach next turn, we can just play the Red Rock. And I think from there, we pretty much have the game. I don't really know what else he's going to be able to do. The Gravity Blade is always really strong in this matchup. They have to go like Van Augur, Teach, Van Augur, and then from the Gravity Blade on both Van Augurs, they have to play like a Burgess Kuzan. Then that's pretty strong for them. Alright, yeah, so he can use the Ducky on the blocker. That's fine with me. And then he can't really play out anything else. I do think that I probably will just KO this with the God Thread, just so that he can't get 2. The problem with this deck comes when he gets 2 Van Augurs. And then from there, he can go like Van Augur, Teach. And then whatever we play just gets killed. So I am going to grab the Giant here. And then I am going to grab the Nami in case we want to play a blocker. And then we can just Giant into those 2 cards if we do need to play the Giant. So I think what we can do here, we could go Godthread Nami and then just get a blocker down, KO the Van Augur. We could Red Rock the Burgess. I like the idea of Godthread Nami just to get another body on board. So let's start with a 6k at life. And obviously I would like to have her effect, but we don't have on plays. You're never really going to have on plays with this deck in the later game because Sanji into anything will just win you the game. So you'll never really be able to play that. Alright, so he does take the block there. So we could Red Rock Burgess. He's probably going to play a Teach next turn. Let's just go 8 at life here, and he'll probably take the swing. Yeah, and then we can God Thread the Augur and then play a Nami. And I don't really need the Dawn for Giant because he can't threaten anything here. Yeah, and then we'll just play the Red Rock the Teach, and then swing. He can't swing with Leader, and then I'll just take the 8k because I have to take it, or 9k. And we actually do hit the ground. Yeah, there's no reason not to use that, and then Red Rock this, and there's no way we lose. And I'll just grab another... Yeah, I'll grab another Giant, and then I'll draw into the blocker. And then what we can do is we can just Red Rock this. And then we can go 7, and then 9. And that should be game. Yep, there we go. That's pretty simple. Having all of the blue removal events kind of just blows this deck out. But yeah, so that is this deck into Teach. I honestly think the Brûlé blocker is better than Bon.Kurei into Teach, at least from like a ramping aspect. The Bon.Kurei providing the pressure of copying a Teach, obviously you're not going to match that with any other card in the game, but I do think this is a nice little alternative for how much cheaper she is.